Labor-intensive and capital-intensive production. Businesses have to manage resources effectively. They have to choose a suitable combination of materials, tools, equipment, machinery, and labor for production. Some businesses use labor-intensive production, which means that they use relatively more labor than capital. Labor-intensive production is common in Far Eastern countries. So these are stories which we know already. Labor-intensive. It means we use more workers than capital. But this will depend on, they said the best resource mix between labor and capital depends on the following factors. So what are the factors that determine if we have to use labor-intensive or capital-intensive? That's the point they are making. One, the type of product. So if we are producing, mass-produced, fast-moving consumer goods are likely to be produced in huge plants using large amounts of machinery. However, in many Western economies, most production is focused on providing services that are often very labor-intensive. So now the type of product. If you are producing goods in the mass market, you need machinery. That is the point.
Yeah.
Clear? And if you are producing services, especially in the first world countries, the developed countries, they use more labor because it's labor intensive because it's services. You get the point here? Manufacturing might use more might be capital intensive. Do you get it? Yeah. Manufacturing might be capital intensive, and tertiary sector or services might be what? Labor intensive. Is it clear? The other factor is
yeah.
The other factor, excuse me, please. The other factor is the prices of the two factors. Which one is more expensive? Is it capital or labor? Do you get the point?
Like, yeah.
You want to make a decision about labor or capital, labor production method or capital production method. The second factor you could use after the type of product is the cost, the price of labor, the price of capital. Businesses will choose the ones that are relatively cheap, in as much as it carries out their production function. Is it clear? Is it clear, please?
No.
We're talking about factors that we put into consideration if we have to decide to choose labor or capital.
Yeah, sure.
We talked about the type of product. Manufactured products need capital intensive more because they're producing in the mass market. Services businesses will use labor intensive because they have to deal with human contacts.
Sure.
The second part is the relative prices of the two factors. The labor intensive and the capital intensive. Which one is cheaper? Businesses will choose the one that is relatively cheaper for their production. That is the point. Is it clear now?
Yeah.
Great. So we go to capital intensive production, the advantages and disadvantages of capital intensive, advantages and disadvantages of labor intensive. Are you there?
Yeah, I'm there.
For capital intensive, generally more cost are effective if large quantities are produced. For capital intensive, it is cost effective if we are producing at large quantities.
Cost effective?
Yeah, it means cost will be reduced because you are producing on a large scale.
Yeah.
Do you get it?
Sure.
Two, machinery is often more precise and consistent because it's standardized. So there won't be mistakes from machines.
Sure.
Machinery can operate 24 hours. People get tired. Do you get the point there? So machine might not stop. Machinery is easier to manage than people. Yeah, people are dynamic. Machine, they don't have to argue with you.
Yeah.
That is the point there. Is it clear? Sure. Then what are the problems about machinery? One, huge setup cost. It is expensive the initial setup is high. Long delays may occur when there is a breakdown. If machine breaks down, then it becomes a problem. It might take time before you find out how to work it out. It may be inflexible. A lot of machinery is highly specialized. I told you earlier that machines are are specialized. So they might not be used for other production. May leave the workforce facing redundancy and affect morale.
Well, what's more?
Morale is your ability, you feeling happy, you having that motivation to work, because now you have machines replacing some of your employees, some of your colleagues. So because machine will replace some of your colleagues, if not you, some of your colleagues will be redundant, and that could demotivate you. These are the advantages and disadvantages of capital intensive production. Now go to labor intensive production.
Sure.
It is more flexible than capital. because you can retrain workers.
Give them more tasks.
You can retrain them.
Mm.
You can tell them, you can teach them how to carry out certain functions.
Sure.
But machines are built in a specific way, which you might not be able to change.
Mm.
It's cheaper when it comes to small scale production, not large scale production, small scale, small businesses.
Mm.
They don't have that, they don't have the financial capability to even buy equipment. They don't even need to buy machinery.
Mm.
So they use workers because workers become cheaper there.
Mm.
Clear?
Sure.
Cheaper for large scale of production when labor is cheap. If labor is cheap,
Mm.
then you can use it for large scale production.
Mm.
Like that's why some people, that's why most businesses take their, take their factory to developing countries or less developed countries like Africa, because labor is cheap over there.
Mm.
Clear? Is it clear, please?
Yeah, clear.
People are creative and can solve problems and make improvements. Machines are stationed.
Mm.
People are creative. They find a better way of getting things done.
Yeah, sure.
Then the problem is about people. People are more difficult to manage.
Mm.
They have feelings. They have reactions. Machines do not have these things.
Mm.
People can be unreliable. They may be sick or leave suddenly. They might leave your work.
Mm.
They might not come today. They might be absent. Machine is stationed.
Mm.
People need breaks and holidays. They can't do it 24 hours.
Yeah.
People sometimes need to be motivated to improve performance. You might even need to, reward them for them to increase their productivity of performance. Is it clear? Any question about that?
Yeah.